Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Ryan Copperud. I'm the VP of Growth at Wild State Cider in Duluth, Minnesota, where I oversee the growth of Birdie, our hemp beverage brand sold in 17 states across the country. Today, we stand united, a coalition of elected officials, business leaders, and trade workers from across Minnesota's hemp industry. We are here because 2 weeks ago, something both unprecedented and catastrophic happened in Washington. In the final stretch of negotiating must-pass legislation to reopen the government, unrelated language was quietly inserted that would reverse long-standing federal policy and effectively ban nearly every hemp-derived THC and CBD product in the country. Without public debate or a single hearing on the consequences, this last-minute insertion will functionally ban access to thousands of products that are fully compliant with Minnesota state law and the 2018 Federal Farm Bill. In doing so, it will gut a thriving industry, erasing hundreds of thousands of jobs, wiping out tens of billions of dollars in economic activity, and eliminating a rapidly growing stream of tax revenue. These losses will fall hardest on states with mature, well-regulated markets like ours. Today, alongside elected officials at every level, you'll hear from the hemp industry, largely on the beverage side, including some of Minnesota's most popular and respected breweries, manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. And while this ban will devastate Minnesota's beverage industry, its impact reaches far beyond it. This ban is a threat to an entire network of business and economic supply chain that supports them in Minnesota and around the country. Farmers who followed federal rules to grow compliant hemp will face a harvest with nowhere to send it. Processors who invested in teams, equipment, and infrastructure to turn those plants into trusted products will no longer be allowed to make or market them. Manufacturers, from consumables to topicals to beverages, will see revenue evaporate and their local and national routes to market shut down. Retailers will lose high-velocity products, core monthly revenue, and the ability to meet customer demand they've spent years cultivating. And finally, the millions and millions of consumers, citizens of every background and political belief in Minnesota and across the country, who will lose access to safe, reliable products they use responsibly to sleep better, manage illness, ease pain, reduce anxiety, and improve their quality of life. The most painful piece of this damaging legislation is that Minnesota has done everything right. In fact, we've been exemplary. Over the past 3 years, we have built one of the most thoughtful, safe, and regulated hemp markets in the country. I have personally been on regulatory calls with other states where policymakers are lifting sections of Minnesota's framework line for line because it is sensible, balanced, and effective. We built a model other states are beginning to follow. We created clear licensing requirements, testing standards, packaging rules, potency limits, age restrictions, and enforcement mechanisms. For years, thousands of Minnesota businesses have followed these rules. And an innovative, regulated, safe, and thriving category has blossomed here and been distributed across the nation. We created quality, trustworthy products that distributors and consumers respect. We invested. We created jobs. We grew. We generated local and state and federal tax revenue. And we built a massive industry that is sustainable and responsible and meeting skyrocketing consumer demand. That industry is now at risk of being pushed off a cliff. Today's press conference is about making the consequences of this policy injustice impossible to ignore. It's about being clear that Minnesota will not accept an industry-wide shutdown slipped into federal legislation without debate, transparency, or due process. It's about reminding the country that the public opinion on this matter is not divided. According to the Center for Alcohol Policy, more than 75% of American adults support regulating hemp-derived THC beverages with the same common-sense framework used for alcohol. It's about lifting up the voices of the Minnesotans who stand to lose so much if this federal ban stands. And it's about calling on our nation's leaders, Democrats and Republicans alike, to demand immediate federal clarification, relief, or reversal, to demand sensible federal policy that protects consumers and protects our economy in Minnesota and across the nation. This industry is not a fringe market. It is a legitimate, job-creating, fast-growing, community-serving sector that deserves to be supported, regulated, and protected, not erased. Thank you again to the elected officials standing with us today and to everyone across Minnesota's hemp industry. This coalition matters, your presence matters, your voice matters, and we appreciate you. With that, let's begin. I'd like to introduce our first elected official to speak this afternoon, U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar.
All right. Well, thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Well, thank you, Ryan. Thank you for your leadership. Thanks to my colleagues, Senator Smith and Representative Omar. The state legislators that are joining us, Mayor, thank you. Minnesota craft brewers. We also have people that work in the industry, and then we also have people who know a little bit about growing hemp. So we are here today because this is a pivotal moment for many farmers, workers, and small business owners who have built our state's successful hemp industry. It's a critical business in our state, from industrial hemp, which I just got a grant through for the University of Minnesota for research that's used for things like construction materials and pet bedding and the like, to hemp beverages made by the breweries here today. This crop is creating jobs in Minnesota. I'm the lead Democrat on the Senate Agriculture Committee, and Senator Smith is an incredible member of that committee, so we are in a good position to try to do something to fix this. That's not easy to say in Washington right now, but we may have a farm bill that's going to be coming through at some point. We'll have other vehicles where we can do something to fix this, as Ryan described, this last minute, in the middle of the night addition that was made to the end of the shutdown bill, that there was never a hearing that there was in the 2018 Farm Bill when we talked about expanding hemp and giving all of the people in this room the guarantee that they were going to be able to grow hemp and to use hemp for all kinds of reasons. We never thought they would do something like that. It's not right, and both Senator Smith and I opposed the bill in general that included this, and we also supported Senator Rand Paul's amendment to strike the language. In the end, this is about jobs, it's about our small businesses, it's about our breweries and our farmers. Hemp is actually an old crop with a strong history in our state. If you just think it's some new thing, interesting fact. 1934, University of Minnesota Extension reported there were 6,400 acres of hemp growing in our state back then. And now, 90 years later, Minnesota continues to be a national leader on hemp. Every year I visit all of 87 counties in Minnesota. I happen to have as my favorite stops the breweries. My husband always seems to want to go on those stops. One, I visited Moorhead, the Swing Barrel Brewing, shared how hemp beverages are make such a major difference with the tariffs and everything else going on right now, all the incoming, to be able to have this as part of their profit. Hemp products alone brought in $16 million of state tax revenue through September, and this amendment, there's a year period here before it takes effect, but it could cost 2,700 jobs. So a one-size-fits-all measure in Congress is the last thing we need right now. Yes, we must protect kids. That has been what a lot of my work as county attorney and since been about, protecting kids. And Minnesota has a regime that does it, including actually outlawing labeling that would be at all appealing to kids, including requiring labeling, including a 21-year limit. And we can protect kids and we can support our small businesses at the same time. That's what our state rules do. The hemp provisions in this government funding bill simply don't strike the right balance. That's why Senator Smith and I are going to continue fighting in the Senate to ensure that Minnesota's hemp operations, including our breweries, can continue. While the ban doesn't go effect, as I mentioned, until a year, every day we fail to address this is another day of uncertainty in a very uncertain time in our economy. I want our state's small businesses and farmers to know that we have their back and we will do everything we can in our power in a very difficult Congress to change this. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Senator Tina Smith. I want to start by thanking Ryan and all of the folks at the Minnesota Craft Brewers and the distillers and the retailers and everybody who is working in this sector for organizing us today. And it's always great to be here, of course, with my fellow elected officials, Representative Omar and Senator Klobuchar, Mayor Fry, and Senator Lindsay Port is here as well. So Minnesota has one of the strongest and safest and most responsible hemp markets in the whole country. We were the first to legalize hemp-derived THC products, and we did it in the right way, with clear guardrails, and bipartisan support, and a regulatory framework that is grounded in public health, in consumer safety, and in supporting small businesses. And it's working. It's working here in Minnesota for farmers and for producers and retailers and distributors, and it's working for consumers who want safe, legal, and clearly labeled and well-regulated products. Today, over 5,300 Minnesota retailers are licensed to sell hemp-derived products. Many are distributing their products around the country, and this is supporting Minnesota jobs, and it is contributing millions in state and local tax revenue. This is what a responsible, growing Minnesota-made market looks like. But in a last-minute move, Republicans added a provision to the budget bills that pulled the rug out from underneath this growing market. And this happened, as Amy said, without hearings, without any input from people from Minnesota, without any real understanding of how these markets work, and with no consideration for the strong regulatory framework that we've built here in Minnesota to protect consumers and especially young people. And as a result, Minnesota businesses are going to find it way harder to expand their businesses. It's going to have a much, much more chaotic regulatory environment. It's going to be impossible to develop national markets for Minnesota-made products. And it's going to make banking for these businesses incredibly complicated and hard to organize. So we're here today to say that we stand with Minnesota's hemp industry and craft brewers. We need to fix this. This is something that we need to fix. It is impossible to have this federal law in place barring Minnesota businesses for doing what they know how to do best. Now, the one piece of good news here is that, as Senator Klobuchar said, implementation of this law doesn't start for 1 year. So that means that we have time. We have to use that time wisely and aggressively to fix this. There are already really good ideas for what we can do. Ryan was telling you about how Minnesota's statute is a national model, and we should be moving that forward at the federal level. But we need to pursue those good ideas so that we can work in a bipartisan way in Congress and here in Minnesota, so that Minnesota can continue to lead the way in this terrific market. So thank you all for being here and for paying attention to this issue. It's really, really important. Now, Representative Omar, who's been a very strong leader on this in the House.
Thank you so much to Ryan, to the hemp industry, and to craft brewers who are joining us here, who are raising their voice. Really grateful to have champions like Senator Amy Klobuchar and Senator Tina Smith in Congress fighting alongside me. Really grateful to have Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey and my dear friend Senator Lindsay Port. I am grateful again that we are all here to raise the alarm and stand with the hemp small business industry in Minnesota. At a last minute, without a single public hearing, as you've heard, without talking to people who are affected, a small group of Washington insiders slipped a provision that would have catastrophic consequences for hemp small businesses in Minnesota and across this country. As the co-chair of the Cannabis Caucus, I was alarmed. Experts say this provision could wipe out up to 90 to 95% of today's hemp drinks, gummies, and other consumables. This is unacceptable. Minnesota did everything right. Our state created one of the strongest, most responsible regulatory framework in the entire country. We implemented age limits to keep products out of kids' hands, strict rules for retailers, high-quality testing, clean labeling, and real accountability. Because of that hard work, Minnesota now has a vibrant and safe hemp economy, more than 5,300 licensed retailers, and over 160 brewers and brew hubs. Now, a one-size-fits-all federal ban punishes our state for doing it the right way, while doing nothing to stop unregulated or bad actors elsewhere. That is just unsensical policy, and it encapsulates everything wrong with the current GOP-controlled Congress. If this ban stands thousands of jobs that are at risk, 2,700 jobs directly, and more farmers, manufacturers, distributors, and small retailers. Minnesota small businesses that followed the rules, invested in compliance, hired workers, contributed to their communities, they are being told their core product will be illegal in a year. That is not right. And let's be clear, this is not just an economic issue, it is also a criminal justice issue. Overnight, a legal, regulated product in Minnesota would be pushed back into the shadows. We will see confusion, selective enforcement, and the very real possibility that ordinary workers and small business owners could face criminal penalties for something that was legal yesterday. And based on decades of failed drug policy in this country, we know exactly which communities are going to be hit hardest when Congress draws broad and careless lines. We can and we should regulate these products, but banning entirely everything nationwide is unacceptable. Ignoring successful labels like Minnesota is not right. All this will do is kill good jobs, reduce consumer safety and choice, and push people back into unregulated and sometimes dangerous black markets. So here is what we must do. Congress needs to fix this, and it needs to fix it quickly. This should not be a zero-sum game. We need a sensible federal framework, one that sets strong safety standards, protects kids, and ensures product quality without dismantling a thriving industry that states like Minnesota worked so hard to build. We must get this right to protect small businesses, workers, and consumers. I will be fighting alongside everyone here today and won't give up until we roll back this harmful provision. Because now is not the time for us to stop fighting and to give up. And as the co-chair of the Cannabis Caucus, you all have my word that I will fight and do everything that I can to protect our hemp small businesses. And with that, I call on State Senator Lindsay Port.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am State Senator Lindsay Port. I represent Senate District 55 in the South Metro, and I am proud to be the Senate chief author of the 2023 law that created Minnesota's legal adult use cannabis. Minnesota created a marketplace for hemp THC combustibles that works. We have empowered thousands of small business owners who hire local workers and reinvest money in themselves and our state's economy. This is a $200 million industry in Minnesota that generated more than $11.5 million in sales tax revenue last year. It's responsible for 2,500 jobs in Minnesota's brewing industry, and hemp beverages are the only growing segment of the alcohol industry nationwide. I will say again, this is a $200 million industry in Minnesota. The winter sports industry in Minnesota is a $230 million industry. If Congress told us tomorrow that we can't snowmobile anymore, people would lose their minds. This is that same kind of economic impact. Trump loves to say that he's good for business. Ask anyone here if this ban is good for their business. This administration is all about states' rights and unleashing innovation until they get a call from a lobbyist or an industry competitor. This ban is inappropriate and reckless. It interferes in a state's right to regulate its own markets and industries responsibly. We have a year to advocate for a fix to this federal mess. We are so lucky to have fighters like Senator Klobuchar, Senator Smith, Representative Omar, who are going to do everything in their power to protect our craft breweries, our small business owners, and our state economy. Minnesota has a great plan if they want to just take a copy of that. I am going to do everything I can at the state level next session, but we just don't know how much the feds are going to take out of our hands. We need the people most affected by this ban to call your U.S. representatives, send letters, show up at district offices, go to D.C. if you can. Lobby for a change in the year we have before this goes into effect and kills a huge industry across the state of Minnesota. Thank you so much. And now we will hear from Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey.
Thank you, Senator Lindsay Port, who has been a champion of this particular issue from day one. Thank you to our federal delegation and Senators Amy Klobuchar, Senator Tina Smith, and Congresswoman Omar for your work fighting over there in D.C. And thank you to all of our local entrepreneurs, our brewers, our business owners who have done everything right. A law was passed in Minnesota that was quite literally nation-leading. Other states around the country are trying to copy that law. Our local entrepreneurs then followed suit. They were creative. They had that kind of Minnesota spirit where they stepped up. They made some incredible products. And by the way, those products are being bought, not just here, but around the entire country. And I'm here also just to talk about the impact directly to Minneapolis. There are institutions now in our city that are loved by families and friends that come from Minneapolis to Minneapolis from around the state, from Surdix to Surly, from Fulton to Insight, and so many others that will be impacted by this. In fact, there are 650 businesses that will be dramatically impacted in that they won't be able to sell hemp-derived products anymore. Around 150 of those businesses will be shut entirely because those are the only products that they sell. And so to those that talk about being pro-business, I ask them to be pro-business in this case. For those that say they want to see legislation passed that allows more businesses in Minneapolis and around the state of Minnesota and around the country to flourish, I don't think you would be for closing at least 150 and probably many more businesses in one city alone. So let's do the right thing for our small and local business community. Let's do the right thing to trigger additional economic development in Minneapolis and well beyond. And if Minneapolis and our small businesses take a hit, it's going to reverberate across districts in the United States as well. Support in small businesses should be, I would hope, something that all of us can agree upon. So let's agree to agree. Thank you so much, and I have the honor. No? Okay, there you go. Take over for me. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you to all the elected officials who gave remarks and showed support today. It's really, really meaningful to the entire state. We're going to take a transition to business leaders and trade workers in the hemp community in Minnesota to give some additional stories about their experiences and their businesses. We're going to start with Bob Galligan from the Minnesota Craft Brewers Guild.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I don't know if you could tell by my stupid facial hair, but I am an outlier in this room. I do not own a business. I have not been elected by anyone, but I do represent the craft brewers of the state of Minnesota. And I represent them because for 13 and a half years before I started representing them, I was a brewer. And so let me say this very clearly, that if this language passes, I will lose, well, my friends will lose 2,700 jobs in 353 days. That is 23% of all of the jobs provided by the brewing industry in the state of Minnesota. If we lost 23% of all of our breweries, that would only leave 183, and the last time Minnesota had 183 breweries was in 2018, right around the time that the federal farm bill that legalized these products was signed with a hemp pen. That language and language that passed in the state in 2022 opened what we in the industry refer to as the Wild West. But if you've ever studied history, you know the West is no longer lawless. As alcohol producers, we know that prohibition does not work. Responsible regulation does. So we took it on ourselves and got to work. Legislators, thank you, Senator Port, staff, brewers, retailers, wholesalers, ingredient suppliers, insurance providers, hemp folks, cannabis folks, Democrats, Republicans, and independents all got together, stepped up, and passed the official robust regulations for hemp-derived THC products. The first, not only in the nation, but as far as I'm aware, the first in the world. That summer, Minneapolis, thank you, Mayor Fry, would host the Hemp Beverage Alliance for the very first hemp beverage conference as well as Hemp Beverage Festival. At the Guild, since then, we have allowed our members to serve their hemp beverages side by side with their quality beer, and we have seen a decrease in reported incidents since we started doing that. It takes a special breed to quietly lead, but now Washington is forcing us to do the last thing that we want to do as Minnesotans, gloat. But this language is breaking what Minnesota has already fixed. We stepped up. We regulated it. We did so not for the purpose of profit, but for the protection of a new product, and most importantly, for the protection of our people. As brewers, we craft beverages, but what we produce is community. Tap rooms, brew pubs, bars, restaurants, fridges in your garage, these are the last remaining third spaces in America. These are spaces where the phones stay in the pocket, but the pictures of grandchildren do not. We cannot let the clean sheen of stainless tanks or the warmth of a wood-paneled dive bar die on our watch. The products and processes may change through the year, but the spirit of hospitality will not. There is a land where consumer choice is real, where there is a bar stool for everyone, where what can I get you is an honest question, and there is no judgment about what a legal, responsible adult drinks or does not drink. That land is called Minnesota. We urge others in D.C. to follow the Minnesota model. Follow the Star of the North. It will guide you true. And when you're ready to learn how, pull up a bar stool, friend.
Thank you, Bob. Next up to speak from the retail side of things, we have Melissa Serdick, the owner of Serdic's in Northeast Minneapolis.
Hello, my name is Melissa Serdick, and I represent Serdic's fourth-generation family-owned Minnesota business that has proudly served our community for over 90 years. For nearly a century, our relationship with our customers have been built on partnerships, listen, and trust. We take that responsibility seriously, and it guides how we approach every product category we bring into our store, including hemp beverages and edibles. Every week, we talk directly with the people who are buying these products, and we understand who they are and why they enjoy them. Hemp beverages and edibles appeal to a wide range of adults in our community. Young professionals who want something enjoyable after work, parents seeking a calm moment at the end of the day, and older adults who appreciate a gentle option that helps them relax or sleep comfortably. Customers tell us that they enjoy these products because they help them focus, feel motivated, or help them unwind, and because they fit naturally in their daily routines. At Serdic's, we see ourselves as partners with our customers. We listen carefully to their needs and preferences, and we take thoughtful decisions about products we bring in. Hemp beverages and edibles have quickly become a valuable category because they offer adults an additional choice, something people can enjoy responsibly and clearly meet their needs in the community. Liquor stores are a safe and trusted place for these products to remain. For generations, we have operated under strict regulations, including rigorous ID verification, staff training, and close attention to customer safety. We provide a secure, accountable environment where adults can make informed choices and where customers are protected in every step. Hemp products now represent 10% of Serdic's business, and losing that category would significantly impact both our operations and the thousands of Minnesotans who rely on these products as part of their wellness and daily routines. Our customers would lose access to something they enjoy and trust, and our store would lose a meaningful part of our business that supports our employees and the community we serve. As we know from example, when customers want something, they do not simply stop seeking. If they cannot purchase hemp products in regulated liquor stores, they will turn online or to unregulated markets where Minnesota safety standards and age protections do not exist. Keeping these products in liquor stores ensure they stay in the hands of trained professionals, sold only to adults, and monitored with the same care we've practiced for over 90 years. Serdic's has always been a community partner, listening to our customers and understanding their needs, and providing a safe and reliable environment for them to shop. Hemp beverages and gummies are a meaningful part of that partnership today. Our customers enjoy them, they use them responsibly, and liquor stores remain a secure place for these products to be sold. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa. We talked about this at the beginning, and many of our officials mentioned this as well, but this is also an agriculture issue. The beverage folks here know very well that all of our beverages start as a plant, and so speaking on the agricultural side of things, we have Angela Dawson from the 40 Acre Co-op.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for your support of this issue and your attention. My name is Angela Dawson. I am the founder and CEO of the 40 Acre Cooperative. Since 2020, we've been licensed to grow hemp up in northern Minnesota. I've also been teaching and training folks on how to grow compliantly and how to ramp up their own businesses, especially on the northern part of the state, but also ended up being called on by the region. In addition, I am on the OCM's Cannabis Advisory Council representing farmers, and more importantly, I am a fourth-generation farmer. So I've been around for a while, and I've seen some things. And I don't know if you know, but Minnesota farmers are having a hard time right now. From tariffs to grants that have been cut, and a lot of promises that have not been made. And I just want to be clear that ever since the 2018 Farm Bill, Minnesota farmers, especially family farmers, have had access to markets that we haven't had in a really long time. We had real opportunities to innovate. For the first time, we could reach markets that we've been locked out for decades. Because if you haven't noticed, farmers aren't really incentivized to grow food for people. We're actually told that that's the quickest way to lose our shirts. Organic farmers, family farmers are struggling to make ends meet. There's always someone that has to work outside full time in order to keep the family going. And hemp has been an opportunity for us to be sustainable, to have pride in our land and in our livelihoods. Hemp really changed the game for me in 2020. It 10x'd my farm revenue 10 times. It let me innovate. I created my own strain of compliant hemp. It brought jobs to my small town. It brought me back to in my community, and I was able to have community with folks who I would have never been able to communicate with before, because, as you know, the plant is a unifier. But, you know, family farmers have been needing this dignity in Minnesota, and we've been overlooked and dismissed for our growing technologies and our innovations for far too long. And now, after 5 years of building something real, we're watching elected leaders unravel this progress with a stroke of a pen. My old farm buddy has a phrase for situations like this, and when I told him about this, he shook his head and he said, "You know, Angela, this is what we call going out in the world ass backwards." Meaning making uninformed, rash decisions with no understanding of the damage that they cause. And he's right, because here's the truth. Nobody seems to be willing to say out loud. Minnesota growers, manufacturers, distributors, and even our legislators have 5 years of lived experience that the rest of this country could learn from if they would stop and listen. We've already made the mistakes. We've already built the systems. We've already figured out what works and what doesn't work. We've been raided. We've been shut down. We've had the lawsuits. We've had the political fights. And, you know, I hate to mention it, but Minnesota had a really rough political year, right? Rest in peace to Melissa Hartman and her husband. So we've had the bank fights, the industry fights. So what this hemp ban is going to do is something that I've seen far too many times in farm country. It punishes innovation. Secondly, it's thwarting an industry that generates, well, we hit billions, tens of billions a year in revenue, employs over 300,000 nationally. And thirdly, it strips away access to really important products, functional support medicine that some folks call it, for millions of consumers, patients, and practitioners. And this is a man-made disaster. You know, on the farm sometimes we have natural disasters that we can't avoid. And they still cost us a lot of money, still hard to recover from, but this is a man-made disaster that we can change. So it doesn't mean that we can't recover from it, but we have to use that resilience of our farming ancestors, because I like to say that every single person has a farming ancestor in their family. Somebody started on a farm in your family. So I think there's a couple of things that we must do to salvage some of this. Number one, we're going to have to unify, y'all. No more hemp on one side, cannabis on the other side. No more dividing the same plant into warring camps, because a divided industry is a destroyed industry. You see, we just got caught off guard. Number two, we're going to have to do some courageous compromising. That means everybody, regulators, licensees, farmers, processors, sitting at the same table and making progress that protects the whole ecosystem. Not just the loudest voice in the room, not just the one with the most expensive lobbyist. Let's stop acting like enemies. We're all built here to be collaborators. And number three, we're going to have to unite under this one healing plant. Hemp and cannabis are one plant, one path to economic progress and justice, one path to sustainable farming, one path to rebuilding our communities from the ground up. And if we forget that, we're going to lose everything. So today I'm not here to, point fingers. I'm just here to demand leadership and accountability. Real leadership, grounded leadership, as we have had with Senator Port and Senator Klobuchar and others. In Minnesota, we've been here before. We can fix this, but not by going out in the world ass backwards. Let's face front, y'all. Thank you.
To hear from a handful more of the beverage folks, the institutions in the Twin Cities, next up I'd like to introduce Omar Ansari from Surly Brewing.
Hello, Ryan, thank you for putting this together. This is a really important moment to have all of these elected officials here standing behind hemp. We are not going to get this change without their help and their leadership. So thank you again. It is really impactful. For those of us that are in the industry, to all of us in the industry, this is personal. This is our livelihoods. These are the livelihoods of our employees. And we've got a year to fight, and we will fight all the way to the end. So good things always come in threes. We have the Minnesota Miracle in 1973 when Governor Wendell Anderson was on the cover of Time magazine describing the Minnesota was the good life. That was followed up more recently by the Minneapolis Miracle. Stephon Diggs kicking the Saints out of the playoffs. And I think
You're really bringing up the Vikings.
Hope. We got to have hope. I think the third miracle is the miracle of the Minnesota hemp model. When the Minnesota legislature changed the law in 2022 to allow low-dose hemp products to be sold in Minnesota, it inadvertently saved much of the Minnesota craft beer industry. In addition to saving breweries and jobs, it led to the creation of a framework that can be modeled at the federal scale. Regulation and testing, age gating of 21 overs, taxes. I have over $30 million generated in Minnesota. I've heard 16, I've heard 11. I'll take the federal and state elected reps to use their numbers. And penalties for noncompliance. The bad actors cannot ruin a whole industry. Bad actors need to be out of the industry or penalized, because banning the industry, prohibition won't work. We've seen it before. So let's find a way to regulate it properly. And Minnesota has that model. I think our model directly and effectively addresses the issues that Mitch McConnell, the Beer Institute, the Distilled Spirits Council, and the Wine Institute all identified when they called for a ban on low-dose hemp products due to the lack of regulation. At the federal level, they're correct. The Minnesota Model Miracle can work at the federal level while still giving states their own ability to impose their own rules. I want to share a story about Surly's experience since the pandemic. The fact of the matter is the beer market has significantly contracted over the past 5 years. Surly, like many other breweries, has seen almost a 50% reduction in beer sold in taproom traffic. Our original brewery in Brooklyn Center that many folks have been to when we started was making so little beer we discussed the option of closing that facility. We only had 5 employees working at that spot. Because Minnesota became a fast leader in the hemp beverage business, we jumped in and have invested over $6 million in that space, really to focus in on the contract packaging space, making THC beverages for other people. We now employ 30 people at that location and another 12 at our warehouse that are simply making THC products. All of those employees count on the low-dose hemp business to pay their mortgages, their rent, put food on the table, and health care. Minnesota has been a leader in the low-dose hemp business, and now it's time for Minnesota politicians to take that baton and help the Minnesota model become the federal model for a regulated, responsible, and taxed framework. Let's save the industry and show the country what Minnesota can do when it works together. Thank you.
Just a couple more folks, and then we'll break for a couple quick questions before we end things today. Speaking of beverage institutions in the Twin Cities, next up I'd like to bring up Ryan Petz, the CEO of Fulton Brewing.
Thanks for the time. My name is Ryan Petz. I'm CEO and co-founder of Fulton Brewing Company. We're a 50-person company, and we've been crafting beverages in the heart of Minneapolis for 16 years. We're an American manufacturer, and this room has a bunch of us in it. This is what it looks like. Small businesses, people beside me who spoke before me, this is what we do. We're owned here, we're employed here, grown here, is made here, and I'm damn proud to be part of it. We're not asking for tax breaks, we're not asking for handouts, we're not asking for protectionism. All we're asking for is sensible regulations so that this industry can continue to thrive, not be eliminated. If you allow hemp to be legislated out of existence, you'll be wiping out farmers, processors, breweries like ours, and it'll deal a major, major blow to industries that support us: wholesalers, grocers, liquor stores, can and cardboard, raw material suppliers, truckers. And this is bipartisan. Hemp products are enjoyed by Democrats and Republicans. Probably wasn't always that way, but it is now. It's veterans.
At least not publicly.
It's veterans, it's boomers and millennials, geriatric athletes probably, and a whole lot of people who just want to chill out once in a while. I think it's something rare in politics, which is something that almost all of us can agree on. So let's look to our alcohol regulatory system as a model for the hemp industry. This framework has enabled the beer, wine, and spirits industries to responsibly serve American consumers for almost 100 years. And meanwhile, Minnesota is already well down this path. Over the past 3 years, our state has developed effective hemp regulations that ensure our consumers have access to safe, tax-paid products. So let's not eliminate an American manufacturing success story. Let's create a better one.
I believe one of the senators mentioned the 5,300 locations that are licensed to sell hemp beverages in the state of Minnesota. Obviously, there's a lot of suppliers up here as well. There's a link in between those two folks, the wholesalers and distributors who actually take those products from the suppliers and bring them to the retailers. And so on the wholesale side, we do have Keith Donovan from the Bellboy Corp today to speak on behalf of the distributors in this category.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Keith Donovan. I'm the general manager of the Bellboy Corporation. We're located in Golden Valley, Minnesota. For 50 years, we have been a wine and spirits wholesaler, and most recently, in the last 2 to 3 years, we have become a hemp distributor. The Bellboy Corporation employs nearly 70 people, including drivers, warehouse workers, salespeople, management, and office support. Bellboy has invested over $250,000 this year alone in our hemp portion of our business. And that is through camera systems and fencing, new employees, new warehouse employees to adhere to the upcoming Section 342 rules in January. The hemp portion of our business now has accounted for 16% of our business. Obviously, being in the wine and spirits industry, as all of you are aware of, alcohol sales continue to decline as well as wine sales. So this has afforded us the opportunity to continue to grow as a company with this added avenue of the hemp industry. So far this year alone, we have given out over $65,000 in commission to our sales team of about 20 people. Bellboy represents approximately 12 hemp companies, and 10 of them are all located directly here in Minnesota, including Bandwagon, Bayuta Pills, Mini-Grown, Mellow, Wicked, Hydro, Edwin's, Lake of the Woods, Botany Farms, Ivory Tiger, and Soma. All those companies will cease to exist if this ban continues. Bellboy has worked closely with the Minnesota Office of Cannabis Management to ensure compliant and safe product is delivered to the retailers. A national ban on hemp will not only negatively impact Bellboy Corporation, but there are approximately 19 other wholesale distributors in the state of Minnesota that currently distribute and sell hemp products to retailers throughout the state. I strongly urge all members of Congress to reconsider the hemp ban. Instead, legalize hemp and provide a framework of regulation similar to the alcohol industry, as well as Minnesota's very own Office of Cannabis Management regulatory guideline. Thank you for all showing up today. We appreciate it.
Last but certainly not least, speaking of beverage institutions, we have one final beverage institution in the Twin Cities here, Insight Brewing, Kevin Hilliard.
Hello, thank you for being here. Kevin Hilliard, I'm one of the owners of Insight Brewing Company. In 2024, we sold 43,560 cases of THC beverages across the Twin Cities metro proper. It's about 62% of our business, and we employ 29 people here locally. As you can imagine, the hemp ban would be absolutely detrimental to the business's health. And these machines that we made or these machines that we bought to make this product cannot be returned. So what really that means is people are at risk and jobs are at risk. I think I was talking in the hallway, and I think Insight Brewing Company's Flavor Pixels is responsible for generating just north of $500,000 worth of taxes for the state of Minnesota. As a good kid, one generation off the farm, I can tell you that the hemp crop is going to go into the ground right around Mother's Day this year. And if a farmer has uncertainty, they're not going to plant. And so when we look around and say, hey, we've got a year, I don't want you to think that way. I want you to think we have a couple months. Because if we don't sprint to the finish on this, we are not going to make it. And this industry that we all depend on to feed our families and to see our employees grow and prosper will no longer exist. What I would like to ask, and as a Gen Xer, this pains me, I would like to ask you, if you like these products, to reach out to your congressperson, reach out to your senator, and make some noise. The most voluminous group of people that enjoy these beverages are the people that drink them. In Minnesota, we can be proud. We are approximately 30 to 40% of the entire nation's volume of hemp beverages. So I think we know how to do it. I think we have a framework that works. And I encourage you to reach out to your state legislatures, because I know the customers vote honestly with their wallets, and they have voted for this product. Please help it continue.
Thanks very much. We just have a few minutes here to field potentially a couple of questions. We are going to be topic limited to the hemp topic today, so please keep all questions on the topic at hand. We can do a handful of questions before we break into an informal scrum here with folks.
For the senators, the vote on Senator Paul's amendment was 76-24. How do you make up that kind of deficit?
It was late at night. It was something that's been noted. There was no hearing. There was no planning. People hadn't heard from their constituents on this because of the way Senator McConnell did it. I don't think anyone's surprised that he would do something in this fashion, but that's what caused, I believe, a lack of information about what this meant and what this did. There were also people, of course, that wanted the outcome. I think Lindsay was talking about people that may look at this as helpful to them money-wise. And that's really concerning that there wasn't an even discussion about what went on. So I wouldn't look at that vote as just being end-all, be-all, because this fight in some ways hasn't begun because of the way that he did it. Knowing that we have a short period of time, our job is to work with Senator Paul and others that, including some Republicans that may have voted one way but are now hearing from their constituents, particularly in Midwest states, and then see if we can come up with something that would either allow for state frameworks or, as been noted by several of the experts here, would simply set the framework, Minnesota's framework nationally. There's all kinds of things. You could extend it some more. You could do, but, Senator McConnell is
He's Senator McConnell.
He is Senator McConnell, and so he is a worthy adversary, but at the same time, there are other Republicans that want to work with us on this. So that's what's in front of us. I always focus on how could we do this by pushing a vote on something else, by making it, if we end up, because of all the difficulties pointed out by our farmers right now, we may well have to do what we call a skinny farm bill, because some of the work's been done already this year, but there may be work to do on a farm bill, increasing loan rates, there's the SNAP issues, all kinds of things that would give us a vehicle to put a change on this. And of course, I will, as the ranking member on the Agriculture Committee, although Senator Bozeman is the chair, push to have some kind of a hearing at the right moment. If we do it right now, I can tell you what will happen. So we want to try to have it when there's maybe a compromise brewing, and then we can't brewing. We could try to push a hearing, and of course we can do our own events in Washington.
Senators, are you going to be writing a bill? Are you going to be filing a bill? And what are you hearing from leadership in terms of Senator Thune? And is there any opposition that you can acknowledge or validate, whether it's about children and about ER visits for adolescents?
Sure.
And
well, of course, any kind of bill would have kids' protections in it. It's very clear. I think the leaders here recognize that given this is into law, Minnesota bill has some fantastic protections of kids in it. So that will have to be part of it. But right now, the key is to get people educated about how bad this is. And that's where I'm not as worried about what our language is as I am about getting that kind of political support to get it done.
Are any of the Republicans in our delegation interested in a fix? Do you all know?
I don't know, but they should be. They should be, because this is an industry that affects every single one of the congressional districts in this state. And as you've heard the producers and others say, this is a bipartisan issue when it comes to people wanting to see a fair and a reasonable regulatory framework for buying products that are safe and legal and responsible. And so I hope that they will be engaged, and I know that all of us would be eager to work with anybody who wants to work with us to try to find a path forward here.
I know that my office has reached out to the Republicans on our delegation. We know that Representative Tom Emmer understands just how much the industry is vital to the economy of Minnesota, so he's much more amendable than the others. But we continue, as the Dem side of the delegation, we continue to work with them, trying to make the impression that this is, as you've heard from the industry leaders, this is an economic issue for Minnesota. This is about job creation. It's about a tax base. And it certainly has been something that, we don't like to brag as Minnesotans, but it's something that we certainly brag about getting it right. And it is unfair for us to be punished for doing the right thing instead of being looked at as a model across the country.
Steve mentioned the math on Senator Paul's amendment. It's a big hill to climb still. There's also a letter out from 39 AGs, including AG Ellison, that kind of encouraged this path that they eventually took here. And I wonder if going back to the AGs and making them change their letter, or if there are any other things that might help move that math.
Well, so first I just want to clarify, I'm glad to know that Secretary Ellison clarified his position on this bill and on this industry, and has been a strong supporter of this industry. But you raise a really good point about how attorneys general around the country would be another great place for folks to reach out to. And I think that one of the things that has happened here is, and I bet that the folks that are in the industry can relate to this, it's not uncommon in a new and growing industry that you've got a couple of bad actors that kind of screw things up for everyone. And I think that some of the folks who voted against the Paul amendment, who voted for this ban, were really thinking reasonably about those bad actors and what we need to do to dial that back and to protect kids. But so now we have, as Amy said, we have a really important education job, to help folks understand that you can have a safe and secure and responsible market that is good for business, that is good for consumers, and that's the job that we had ahead of us. And I'm like very open-minded about what the solutions are, but I do think we need to bring some urgency to this because, as it was just pointed out, farmers right now are trying to figure out what they're going to put in the ground come the spring. So we need to be good partners with them.
And I will say the illicit market, learning what the illicit market did in Minnesota when it was the Wild West for that first year is actually how these hemp producers and lots of other good actors came to and worked with us at the state to put real legislation that would help to protect our kids, that would make sure people had safe, regulated, tested products that they could trust on the shelves. We don't want to go back from that. We don't want an unregulated market here, and that's what this will do. There are too many people across the country that like these products, that will pay for these products. There will be an illicit market that pops up to fill this space. It will not be regulated. It will get in the hands of children. It will not be safe for consumers to trust, but it will pop up. It will not be taxed. It will not be part of our, economy in the real sense that helps workers and helps businesses. We want Minnesota's model, or a model like it, to spread across the country, not to take us back to the very dangerous illicit market that we had.
And that's one of the best arguments to use with attorney generals about how we could have an alternative to this.
And I would just add to like what Senator Amy Klobuchar was saying about not reading into the votes. Oftentimes when lobbyists are trying to get something through that is not popular with the American people, they will do it in the dark of the night because they know that they want to be the only person that members hear from. That they're not hearing from their constituents and getting that opportunity to actually look into it. And so oftentimes when you see these kind of votes that are rushed and people make decisions, on the go, it might be that they're not fully informed. We didn't even hear about it until it passed on the House side. And so I wouldn't put it past a lot of these senators having a conversation with our two incredible senators and actually understanding the harm that it causes for them to support that ban and then maybe possibly changing their vote.
I would say, too, just really quickly on that issue, I do think that from an industry side, the industry has looked at that vote as a vote to reopen the government, not a vote against hemp. And I think if you have one-to-one conversations with several representatives from states all around the country, they will tell you that that was a vote to reopen the government and that was not a vote against hemp.
Including those Democrats that were the group of them. All of this was all tied into the way they did this with that shutdown vote. And you cannot, and it was on a tabling, and it wasn't, it was not a up or down vote on the issue itself.
And to the point about the AGs as well, I just want to make this point as well. We don't begrudge AGs in states without regulatory frameworks that are as comprehensive and well done as Minnesota's asking for regulation. I don't begrudge anyone that. In fact, that's what we're rooting for at a national level, is regulation that mirrors Minnesota's regulation in other states. Minnesota's model is one that can and should be followed. So those AGs saying we want regulation, we want these products to be safer, isn't a problem. In fact, we think that's a good thing. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's roll that model out to those other states so that those AGs can have what they want. They can have safety for their children, and they can also have the economic boon that we have had here in Minnesota and continue to see around the country.
What portion of your business goes away if the THC beverages, you could still make them, but the only place you could sell them would be at a cannabis retailer?
It's incalculable. It's vast, and that's true. I don't know if there's actual suppliers here that want to say a specific number, but I can tell you that in the past 2 weeks I have heard the word bankruptcy thrown around more than I have ever heard in my entire career, based on this topic alone.
And brewers that are doing this, if hemp becomes illegal, they can't brew beer anymore if they brew hemp. So they'd have to pick one or the other, which makes it unsustainable for them to continue to exist in the market.
And speaking of bankruptcy, small farm bankruptcy is already at an all-time 5-year high, even before this takes place. So, okay. Huh? Well, so at any moment, I did chair his inauguration. So, he, as you know, as they know, at the very last minute came out for the McConnell thing. But again, this was all tied in with the shutdown, and it doesn't mean that like he's never changed his position on anything.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions.
There are plenty of states across the country that have banned these products because of the lack of FDA regulation and research that suggests Delta 8, for example, is dangerous. I know that Minnesota's facing Delta 8 out, but what do you say to people who live in those states who are used to being told that these products shouldn't be sold?
I think one of the big turning points of the last year was when Governor Greg Abbott vetoed a ban bill in the state of Texas. I think that was kind of for a lot of us in the industry, that was a show that these are legitimate products, no matter what state or who controls what state you are in. And I think also, to the point of the AG as well as the brewers, we have had great meetings with the Attorney General, and his office has been absolutely wonderful and has learned a lot. I just want to acknowledge this is an incredibly nuanced and confusing issue, the difference between hemp and cannabis. That is exactly what House File 100 addressed, was the separation of cannabis and hemp, and that was the success of our bill. What this does is essentially make hemp cannabis. And it takes away everything that we can do. It makes banking absolutely more difficult for us. Insurance then becomes an uphill battle. Again, we have to hold Tax and Trade Bureau licenses. They will not operate with a federally illicit business, so we no longer can make beer. We have to choose hemp or beer. There is a tax provision, 280E, where now we cannot write off any of our business expenses. There's a lot of things that the consumer does not know about, should not know about. There's no reason. But those are the reasons why we will not continue to actually exist if this language actually passes in 353 days.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and break it there. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to our elected officials.
Office holiday party.
Thank you very much.